we have done the impossible, and that makes us mighty. Hey, and welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Here Be Dragons. I am your host, Stephen Stark. With me, as always, are my beloved co-hosts, Nessie and John. Say hi, guys.
Hey, guys.
Hi, guys.
So before we jump into the meat of this episode, which is about Firefly and Serenity, a show that many of us already love, Nessie watched for the first time recently, and I can't wait to pick your brain about it. There's a couple of things I wanted to point out. First of all, in the chat, I saw KW Dent earlier, who has a very excellent podcast called Blood of the Pod, just released their first video today, breaking down the Song of Madness thing that Davos Fingers, another excellent podcast, is doing. You guys should go check them out and support what they're doing. And if you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter. A Song of Madness is the funnest time of the year to be a Song of Ice and Fire fan. The whole community is voting on which characters are better, and there's a lot of good-hearted ribbing that goes on. And so go check that out. That would be the Davos Fingers Twitter. Yeah, that Twitter account, Davos Fingers. Every day there's four new people to vote on. They're going through 96 A Song of Ice and Fire characters. Yeah, get on that if you're not on it. You will love it. It's a lot of fun. Also, it is International Women's Day today, and I am not blind to the fact that a lot of my biggest supporters, or our biggest supporters on the channel, are some really lovely and intelligent ladies. So to all of you ladies who show up every week and who contribute to the chat and who make this channel what it is, who form the backbone really of this community, thank you so much. We love you to pieces.
Yeah, love you guys. Coming back week after week, supporting us here at the Dragon.
All right, so that having been said, you can take my love and you can take my land. You can take me where I cannot stand. I don't care. I'm still free. You can't take the sky from me. Nessie.
Yes.
As someone who literally just watched it within the last few weeks, can you give me like an overview of what you thought of this show?
Oh, well, let's say first off, of course, there should have been many, many more seasons than just what we had. The plot line was there. It could have gone on for several seasons. Overall, there was a lot to like. Even though the show is now over, what is it, 18 years?
I think it came out in 2002. I was going to say 3, but
so 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the age of one of our children.
I've got kids older than that, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that especially for the time was very innovative. So I mean, you really have to look. I think you should judge this show on its time and its time frame, because comparing it to in a lot of ways to what some of the shows are able to do now, like with their budget and their writing, the backing that they have, it's not a fair comparison. But if you just look at the storyline, what they had to work with, the ideas that they were putting out there, that's the merits that we should be judging it on, the storytelling ability. And it tells a really good story, even in the one season we got I don't want to say we got a good plot. I mean, a good arc, one maybe good. Yeah. A good arc. I wasn't dissatisfied. Well, I really didn't care for the final episode of the season, but up until that point, I was very, very pleased with it.
Right on.
So I'm not the fan that a lot of these people are, that they've been watching it every year for 18 years, and several times a year, know it backwards, forwards. Followed all the actors through, where they went afterwards and what they've done in their career.
Right.
So just, yeah, I'm just the novice here.
What I'm looking forward to is when you go back and watch something old and get a reference about Firefly that was there the whole time, but you never picked up on, because they do exist. Absolutely. This show has entered especially the geek culture zeitgeist.
Yeah, I would definitely, put it right there, right at the head of the class.
So
right at the head of the class. Yeah.
John, you're an old school fan. When did you first watch the show? Do you remember?
I first watched the show a few months before the film came out.
Okay.
So I wasn't one of the original fans, unfortunately. But it also means I didn't have to watch the episodes out of order like a lot of people were stuck doing when it aired on Fox. But I actually caught onto the show from a recommendation of a coworker of mine who lent me the DVDs. And
media.
yeah, and I was pretty much sucked in immediately. And then it was all about, getting hyped up for the film. And I remember going to see it in theaters, and it was just one of the funnest experiences I had, just because it had been like just a matter of a couple months of going from what's this new show to, oh my God, this thing is awesome. And oh my God, why wasn't there more of it? And oh my God, I can't wait for the movie.
Right.
So it was just a roller coaster leading into that. And ever since then, it's been just an absolute favorite of mine. And I don't think at this point I can look at it objectively, but I just love every second of it.
Right on. Well, before we go any further in the stream, my co-host here just happens to be looking a little brown today. Steven, you got a little wardrobe going on over there?
Are you saying that my coat is sort of a brownish color?
It could be kind of brownish.
It was on sale.
I can see why. But I love the hat. The hat makes the man.
I'm probably going to lose both of these pieces of accoutrement eventually, but we'll see how long I can last.
I don't know. Yeah, you're not going to do the go the John with the microphone route and do it the whole time?
No. Yeah, so I've seen a lot of love for the show in general as well in the chat. John, so you came to the show definitely before I did. I want to say I found it. So the movie was already out and available on like DVD. So that was probably 2006 or 2007 when I came across it. I had heard of it, but I probably borrowed the CDs or the DVDs from a friend and watched the series, and I was like everybody else, I just fell in love with it because of the really there's great characters, and I referenced this during the Picard stream. I referenced Firefly in that a lot of the characters on Picard seem to be reflections of the aspect of Picard. The same is true of this show. Different characters in the show are reflections of different aspects of Malcolm Reynolds. And it's so brilliantly done. And while they're reflections of him, they're still their own fully realized characters. They are interesting apart from Mal, but Mal is probably more interesting because all of them. And okay, KW Dent says, God, I love Mal. I love Mal too. And usually the captain is not the most interesting one, in these ensemble style type things. Holden, interesting, not the most interesting.
Not the most interesting, no.
But Mal is he's such a great character. The loss of his his faith that we see really in the first episode, the pilot. In the very first scene, he's kissing a cross and he's, trying to pump up his comrades around him. And then we catch up with him 5 years later and he's cynical and, he's lost all of his faith in everything except his crew and his ship.
Right.
And I think that's an important thing to establish early in the series for this series to make us understand what the ship means to him, why it means to him, what it does, and by extension, what the people on the ship mean to him.
Yeah. His crew and his ship are everything. That's all he has left that he can claim as his, because he lost everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting on just a behind the scenes note, because there's actually two different versions of Malcolm Reynolds in the TV series, because we get the pilot version and then we get the version for the rest of the series when Fox actually told Joss to lighten Mal up a little bit. So we see him as more humorous throughout the series, but you really get a snapshot in the pilot of what his character kind of was meant to be. He's very, even more cynical and very dark, and that's also the version that pops up in the film Serenity.
Yeah.
So
fairly
it's just
jaded.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Okay.
that said, I enjoy his in the Mal 2.0 as well, because he's quite funny.
Okay, I made it to about the 12-minute mark, y'all. It's just too much.
Wow.
You don't understand. That hat is like a size too small. It's my daughter's. And it's made out of wool, so it's itchy too. So.
Yeah.
What would Jane say?
My mother made that hat.
Mm-hmm. He'd probably smack the crap out of me and tell me to give him his hat back.
Yeah, Jane is a fairly lively character.
Well, that's the thing about this show. Every character, even the characters that I don't personally favor as much, are intensely interesting.
Yeah.
Like, to me, Simon is maybe the least interesting character on the show, but he's got his moments where he's just so good and so compelling in what he does that I can't help but love him, even though I'm like, you're the boring one, but you're still awesome. And when the time comes for you to be awesome, you step up to the plate.
I mean, I just love in Jane's in town his the whole thing with, no, this must be what going mad feels like.
Right.
Jane with the hay in it.
Now, Bernie, I'm not going to accept that if you're going to spell his name wrong.
Yeah, it's with an A.
Yeah.
That's the Jane Poole way of spelling it.
Come on, Bernie, bring your A.
Hey, look. That's the Jane Poole way of spelling it. It's fair that she can make that mistake.
I'm sure it's quite
right.
Yeah. Bernie can get away with whatever. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm not the one to call her out on that stuff.
Mm-mm.
There you go. She's corrected it. So that having been said, let's talk about our favorite characters, and I'm going to start with the new girl again. Sorry, John. We'll get to you in a minute, but I'm going to start with the new girl again.
Well, I mean, you got to go with the lovable mechanic, Kaylee Fry. I mean, if you just don't love Kaylee, get out of here. Go away. She's just the sweetest thing, and she's obviously she's the heart of the ship. She's Malcolm Reynolds' heart.
Mm-hmm.
She's 1 minute she's like this little girl, and that he never had. Just the way he treats her, like kind of like a daughter ish. Not really seeing that she's growing up in some ways, but
right. Well, he met her.
Our introduction was, when he was in the gosh, the flashback episode where he actually introduced her. It's like,
Mhm.
that's not Daddy's little girl over there. So, yeah, Kaylee. She's my baby.
I mean, it's hard to argue with. I love that character as well. And you are right to call her the heart of the ship. And it's interesting that she's placed then as the mechanic with the engine being the heart of the ship. You know,
absolutely, the symbolism is not lost.
like if you want to get, and not just Mal, but everyone together, threaten Kaylee, and the entire ship will be after you. She's the best friend to River. She is a love interest for Simon. She is the little sister to Mal. She's the other single girl to be with Inara, and they brush each other's hair and stuff, you know. So she's that kind of friendship with Inara. And like when you in the time when we see her get shot, you can see Jane outside the window like chewing his nails. I mean,
oh, I love that moment.
yeah, it's a great moment for Jane as well. But she is such a pure, like, and she's not. I mean, I don't want to call her a cinnamon roll because she's like grease smeared on her cheek. You know, I don't. She's she's the mechanic, like you say, but
she's an apple fritter.
Okay, she's an apple fritter. We'll take it.
All right, just a little lumpy here and there. Got some texture to it.
And
I have no idea what any of this means.
I also appreciate that as a character, she as a female character, she was in charge of her own sexuality too. Really kind of like, even from the moment Mal came to know her, you know, he met her because she was laying under the engine and not alone, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on a second. Y'all, I'm still sick, so
yeah, we've been kind of sick over here at the Dragon. Steve and I both had the crud this week, and I'm just kind of washed out myself. So I had the flu, and Steven, I think, still got a bad case of bronchitis.
Well, no, it's mostly sinuses. It's a little bit in my chest, but like the worst has been the sneezing, the unpleasant stuff that comes with sneezing, and the massive headaches because of the pressure. But I'm doing all right at the moment. So, yeah. And
not coronavirus.
I love this show. So, like, I've talked about Kaylee. You've talked about Kaylee. John, you want to say anything else about Kaylee?
Just that she's adorable. I mean, how can you not love Kaylee? And she's just basically the little sister that you know, that's impossible not to love. I love, especially in the pilot episode, you really get to know her as she's talking to Shepard Book and kind of trying to woo him onto the ship. And I love her exchange with him when, you know, he shows her his, you know, one of his forms of payment, and she goes, "Grandpa." and I think one of the best visuals in the show may be the absolute pure delight she takes in eating that strawberry.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, Kaylee likes her strawberries.
And just, I love the way she talks too.
Oh yeah.
You know, which I guess goes with her being adorable. And somebody pointed out, I can't remember who, somebody in the chat pointed out that Jewel State was asked to put on, it was Leaf, asked to put on 20 pounds to play that character because they wanted her to not be, you know, a thin body type. And Jewel State, by her nature, is a thin lady. If you saw her on Stargate Atlantis, she was much thinner there.
Didn't she pretty much tell them to shove it when it came time for the movie?
Yeah,
Because
I think so.
I think I remember reading that she said, if I'm going to be on the big screen, I'm going to look my best.
Right.
Yeah, when she got her pink dress.
Oh yeah, that
Um,
layer cake.
Yeah, the frou-frou dress. Oh God, she was so girly in that. She thought she
Yeah,
was
I
something else.
love that whole like okay, so I rewatched this show several times. I didn't get a chance to rewatch it this week for this. Again, I was sick, sleeping twice as much as I usually do. But every time I go through this, I think that episode where she gets that dress is going to be one of those where it's like, I don't remember if this is one of my favorites. And then I get through it and I'm like, God, I love this episode.
Oh yeah,
And
that's a great episode.
like, if I'm telling the truth, there's only one episode that I don't love. And I still like it. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
Nestor, have you only watched it once? You've only watched
Actually, well, I watched it twice. I watched it once through about a month ago when we were talking about doing this,
Yes.
and I had just started the first watch through there with my husband, who absolutely loved the show. By the way, liked everything about it, especially the Western flair
Mhm.
that the series had. It was episodic, just like the old Westerns, where, the guy goes from town to town doing good where he can. There's always something in the backstory that, he keeps in his head, keeps to himself, that kind of drifting cowboy vibe. Definitely, you see it all through this show. So he really resonated to that. But yeah, watched it once through before, waited until I was out all week. So I said, time to do the rewatch and watch the movie. So I finally got to watch Serenity, the movie. And that was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I'd say so.
And you bring up the movie. It's kind of incredible that movie even exists.
Yeah.
Because it's made from a television show that failed halfway through its first season. Years onward,
Yeah.
like it should not have been made. It should not have. If we're talking about, I mean, in a lot of cases, it's almost a miracle any movie ever gets made because of the level of coordination and the amount of money it takes and all that stuff. But that movie should not have been made.
It should not. It was pure fan service that got that on the big
screen. A lot was made at the time about how it's floundered at the box office, but honestly, its existence was victory enough.
Right. Yeah. And it remains a classic to this day within the broader nerd culture. It's never going to be a film that achieves the level of sort of like The Princess Bride, if you will. Everybody's seen The Princess Bride. Not everybody's seen Firefly and Serenity, but but as far for like nerd culture, it's kind of it's a classic, and nobody's seen it all. You see Anna here, John. One more for you to recruit to your side.
Anna's been firmly in that camp now for weeks.
There's no more need for recruitment because I told you, Stephen, it's happening whether you want it to or not.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, it probably is.
Yeah. John has a way of,
Look, real talk, it's probably not going to be within the next month or two, but
well, we'll see.
It might, but I got to imagine it's going to happen at some point. But yeah, that's not Firefly and Serenity.
No.
So, John.
Yes.
Do you have a different spin on favorite character?
Kind of conflicted because my impulse is to go with Mal, just because I find him so interesting, and because I actually do tend to like protagonists quite a bit because we're with them on their journey and we see their struggles. But having said that, I know it's kind of the boring answer a little bit. So putting Mal aside for a second, I will say that I love Jane. And it's like there's not a moment from Jane that isn't pure gold. I didn't get to do a full rewatch of the show, but I watched a few episodes, and I was watching Our Mrs. Reynolds today, and I just love the moment when he, comes up with Vera, his gun, and he's like, "I get the feeling sometimes you don't take me seriously." It's built up as this whole big thing.
Yeah.
That scene also contains maybe not my favorite Malcolm Reynolds quote, but a very top one, which is, "My days of taking you seriously are definitely coming to a middle."
Yeah. God, but yeah, he's just Jane is so great. He's humorous, but he's also, you can't trust him.
He's a folk hero, man. He's the
we can't even. I can't even talk about him without mentioning Jamestown. Obviously, I mean that's just one of the best episodes of the series, and
yes,
the Ballad of Jane Cobb is a classic unto itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's also those moments like, I say he's hilarious, but he's also the guy you can't trust, but also he does have real heart to him at the same time. We mentioned that moment where he's watching Kaylee through the window when she's having surgery. It shows that he really cares about her, even though he may, not always show it in the best way. But
he's a pig. Yeah, we can say it.
But he definitely cares for her a lot, and he cares for the crew. So even when he does despicable things, sometimes it's with an eye on the money, but sometimes it's also because he thinks it's what's best for the people he considers to be his family.
Right.
So I agree with you, and I want to talk more about Jane, but Danny McKay had a question, and I'm going to address it real quick. He said, recently Galaxy Quest was in a Twitter poll. What was that about? Well, Nessie can't be here every week. She's a nurse, and she ends up working a lot of Sundays, and there's no way around that. So John and I were looking for something that we could do, and Nessie might end up doing some of them with us, depending on the schedule, but like something we could do that was easy and that we thought everybody would enjoy. And the idea came up that we would do reviews of like nerd culture classics. So we talked amongst ourselves. We came up with 4 nerd culture classics and asked y'all to decide which one. And now is as good a time as any to tell you all that The Princess Bride won that poll. So next week, John and I will be retro reviewing The Princess Bride. And as far as what's after that, we don't know. As far as when is the next one, we don't know that either. But you know how we do here. We kind of we wing it. We have stuff lined up, but yeah. So next week, retro review for The Princess Bride. Cool.
Yeah, and for the record, I would have been perfectly fine talking about any one of those 4 films and many more besides. So we've got plenty for future episodes.
And I wanted to pull this question from River Missoula before I get back to Jane. I almost said Amos. Wow.
No.
Wrong show. But do I believe the fan theory about Shepherd Book being a plant? I don't. I mean, it's a fine theory, but like, I don't.
What?
Yeah. You haven't heard this theory?
Dude, I don't know fan theory. I barely have the show
down.
Oh,
right. You've never heard of anything other than just the basic show.
Just the show, man. A plan, really.
I really don't believe so. But like, it's not a ridiculous theory either. If you look up, it's been a while since I read it. Yeah, there's a theory that he is a spy and he's there tracking the TAM.
Oh, okay.
But you know, you can look it up. I don't know it well enough to be able to point stuff out. One thing I do know, though, you know what? I'm going to save that. We're talking about Jane, the hero of Canton. I was hoping you wouldn't pick Kaylee so I could pick Kaylee. And then I was hoping you wouldn't pick Jane so that I could pick Jane.
Maybe I should have stuck with my first one.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We'll get there. It just means more love to go around. I do really love that character. You guys do know how much I love Amos. Maybe you don't know, but you should. How much I love the Hound. I love the sort of like the violent, chaotic, dangerous man, but who's struggling with his morality, but is still fighting the fight, against their darker nature. I love that in a character, and Jane is another fantastic example of that. He, exactly where you stand with Jane. The only
out of the money.
Well, right. But that's still knowing where you stand. You know that if the money is good enough, it's going to be an interesting day. And we saw exactly what that looked like.
Yeah.
And God, it's another great episode. I loved it, We applied the cortical electrodes and we were unresponsive. But so I kind of love him as a character too, because of his complex psychology going on behind what can come on. He's smart. He's not stupid. He's witty. He cares about Kaylee. He cares about Mal. He doesn't like Simon and River too much, at least not in the earlier part of the first season. But watching him navigate his and he's socially inept, but watching him navigate his social relationships is just fascinating to me.
Yeah, he steps in poop quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. But I agree with you, John. Like, anytime he's on screen, he is making it better.
Yeah,
he's very colorful.
And what I love about the writing of Jane also is it's like any time that things veer close to getting too heavy with his character, it'll sort of nosedive into a hilarious moment. So, so it's like you take his more dangerous moments seriously, but not too seriously, because he's going to say something ridiculous in the next breath.
Right. Something stupid, something funny. Yeah, I love him as a character. He's, again, I was hoping to be able to bring up Kaylee and or Jane myself, but you're going to make me go to third place. I think I would say Wash. Because Wash is another person who is just genuinely himself, knows who he is, doesn't care necessarily what other people think about him. I mean, he's a human being, and he goes through his stuff, but he is the funniest character, funnier than Jane, and Jane is hilarious. But Wash is like feeble attempts at being macho that he knows are feeble, and he's playing them to be like ironic. God, he's so good. And real talk, I'm an Alan Tudyk fan since I saw him in 28 Days, and then he's been in a lot of other Whedon projects, and I've seen him.
The first thing I saw him in was A Knight's Tale, and I think ever since then I've just been a huge fan. And if there was something that actually piqued my interest when I saw the ads for the show, it was that he was in it. And I remember thinking that might, aside from it being a Joss Whedon show, which, you know, at the time it was coming off of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. Well, actually, those were still on even. So for me, that was something that would pique my interest anyway. But especially since he was in it, and he's great.
Yeah, I've seen some love for his work in Dollhouse too, which was
Mhm.
a lesser known Whedon show. I've seen it. It's really good. You got to make, if you've only seen the broadcast version of it, you got to make sure you get the extra episode from
Yeah, I haven't seen the show since it was originally running.
and
But
there was an episode, there was like an episode at the end of the season that never aired in the United States for the first and second seasons, and they are definitely worth watching because they are set in the future. And,
yeah, I think I saw at least one of those episodes.
right. And and those episodes have Felicia Day in it, which is, yeah.
Yeah, from what I remember, that was quite a departure for him in terms of the role he was playing.
Yeah. Well, he's kind of a lovable goofball in a lot of ways. We'll just say that in Dollhouse, he's not a lovable goofball.
Yeah.
Have you seen Dollhouse, Nessie?
No.
Pretty good. Anyway, it's not Whedon's best work, but it's still really good.
Yeah, I think it felt like the first few episodes he was trying to deliver something the network said they wanted, and then after a few episodes, it was just kind of like, screw it, just
And did his thing.
And he just did his thing, and then that's when it started to get good.
It's definitely worth watching. If you haven't seen it, it does not come from me as highly recommended as other shows, but it's definitely worth watching. It has Eliza Dushku is the star, and she's a great actress. And the nature of the show allows her to play a very broad range of characters. So as an actress, she's got a lot to do, and she's very, very good. Should give it a try. But that's Dollhouse. We're talking about Firefly. So, Nessie.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Guys,
I'm a little sick and my brain is a little addled.
Oh, we were talking about Wash.
We were talking about Wash.
yes. I love the dinosaurs.
Right.
That is my favorite part about him is his whimsy.
Right.
He's so childlike and just free spirited. This guy is great. He's happy wherever he is.
I just have to say, doing what I could of my rewatch. I think one of the most laugh out loud moments I had was the interrogations in Bushwhacked.
Oh yeah, he didn't accept.
It was Zoe being, we're very private people, and then it cuts right to Wash saying her legs, definitely her legs,
and the part just above her legs.
You know, where it comes right to her back.
That whole area.
That whole area there. Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Those two together are just gold.
They really are, because they're such an odd couple.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Beyond the fact that there's a lot of role reversal for them, she being the sort of like kick butt, take names, almost to the point of being not macho, not quite. And him, the sort of silly, goofy, like one that needs protecting. I kind of love that role reversal, but they're also just, from a personality point, so different.
Yeah. They're so good together, though. They complement each other perfectly. And to think that, when they first met, I just don't like him.
Yeah. With that ridiculous mustache, too.
With the mustache.
Oh, I love it. I love that crazy caterpillar on his lip.
Oh,
I mean, who am I to talk, but still.
No, Steven, this is totally different thing. Yeah. Mm-mm. It had to go 100%. That caterpillar had to go.
I mean, Alan Tudyk is a handsome ass man. He needs to get that thing off his face. Why are you hiding that beautiful face for?
I mean, and just in terms of Wash moments, though, I think probably my favorite stuff with him is when he and Mal are getting tortured by Nitzka.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did check that outing, his first time out.
Yeah, there's hilarity, but also just a lot of heartfelt stuff in there. And the way that Mal tries to keep him going. And then when Wash gets released and he's talking to Zoe, and he's like, he's insane. And she's like, I know. And he's like, no, not in this guy. Mal.
He's insane. Yeah.
But he's a reflection of Mal's innocence, and that's what made him such a great character to be paired with Mal in the torture scene.
Right. That's Mal before the war.
Right. But you're right. It's one of the greatest scenes on the show where they're they're being tortured by Nishka, and they're ignoring him and having it out with each other. So good. And even Nishka was entertained by that.
Yeah, I think that might be one of the best parts of the scene.
Oh, anyway, yes, I do love me some Wash there. So, unless either one of you have something else to say about Wash, Nessie,
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you a couple of questions and see if I can't lead you to something, okay?
Okay, go ahead.
So, there's a couple of times where River has these full-blown freakouts on the ship. A few times. In one case, she's tearing labels off of various cans. In another time, she picks up a knife and slashes Jane right across the chest.
Yeah.
And in the movie Serenity, she's watching a commercial and totally freaks out and starts, blasting folks.
Yeah.
Do you have any inkling about what's happening there?
Well, I mean, at the time, the first time I watched it, before I watched the movie.
Or tell me what you think is happening.
Well,
why did she tear the labels off the can? Why did she slash Jane across the chest?
Well, she has zero filter for one thing. She has no filter for her brain.
Mm-hmm.
So any emotions or emotions especially that she picks up in the room from other people are going to be hyper magnified through her brain and the way she senses things. And she has no way of shutting anything out to get any kind of peace and quiet. And sometimes, like with the labels, she's just doing some mindless, repetitive act, just to quiet her brain.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
And then,
but I want, next time you watch, if you pay close attention, you will see that there is something directly linking all three of those scenes. So, the canned goods are manufactured by the Blue Sun Corporation. Jane's T-shirt says Blue Sun. It has the Blue Sun Corporation logo on it. And the commercial that sets her off in the movie is a Blue Sun Corporation commercial.
Okay. Cool.
So, and if you look carefully, the Blue Sun Corporation iconography is actually all over the background of that show.
Okay.
Obviously I know about, what sets her off in the film, but I had not paid attention to those details back in the show, Stephen. That's
which tells you the Blue Sun Corporation was meant to play a much bigger role had the show continue.
Right.
They
So
were going to
just
be
the seed of things to come.
they were going to be a big bad of some kind, you know, because let's face it, Joss loves his big bads. He invented the concept, for crying out loud, at least for television. So yeah, when I first, and I, real talk, I did not notice it myself, but when somebody pointed it out to me and I watched it since, and there's other places too, like it's the Blue Sun Corporation that made the stuff that made the Reavers. It's the Blue Sun Corporation that did to River what was done to River.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're a shadow corporation front for government activities.
Right. 2x2 with hands of blue.
Mm. Do you know those characters only appear in 2 episodes?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's a shame. That's one of the elements that got dropped from the film because they just didn't have time for it.
Right.
Right. They just jumped toward, oh, and here, these at the end. Skip the middle guys. But at least, I mean, the one thing that I didn't get any, clarity on, and my husband asked me about this the other day. It's like, what is up with Shepard? What, who is he? Who was this guy? No background. He just shows up.
Well,
if you really want to know, there is a comic book.
Is he a plant? I don't know. Is he a geranium? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a comic book that tells his story. And if it interests you, I mean, it's one of those things that, because I was very understanding of the fact that with a film, they had time to address certain things. Mm-hmm. And with Shepard, they decided just to continue to leave it a mystery, and they did address the fact that they were leaving it a mystery.
He's a shrubbery.
And so I was fine with that. And ultimately, when you consider, the fact that the show got canceled and they just had a 2-hour film to wrap things up, I was fine with the way they did that. But yeah, for curious minds, the comic book does tell his story.
All right, we'll have to check that out.
There's a couple of comic books, and they're all worth a read. Character love can continue if we like, or we can move on to something more plot.
We haven't talked about Inara at all.
Okay.
No, nothing. And I think Inara is one of the most positive characters that they have in the series. One thing that I thought was ahead of its time in 1993, 2, whatever, was the way that their portrayal of sex workers. So they are portraying their sex workers in a very positive manner, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not 100%, it's not perfect, but at least they're not the way they have been portrayed in other series. So Inara is a very strong, personable, intelligent, amazing character, and who just also happens to do this for a living.
Right.
So, yeah, she's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the sex positive image that they cultivated, not just with Inara, but like you said before, with Kaylee
as well.
And
Zoe.
River and Zoe, right. She's a happily married woman who has an active sex life with her husband. River doesn't really have that type of arc, but like it's early in the season and she's dealing with trauma. She probably shouldn't be trying to have a boyfriend. You know what I mean? Mm. Plus, right. The Serenity is not a place to find a boyfriend.
No, but she is learning how to reconnect with people on a human level,
right?
Which is where she needs to be. She and Shepard have a good relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It brings in a lot of questions there about the difference between faith and reason.
Right.
When River was trying to tearing out the pages of the man's Bible and fixing them.
Right.
Because this doesn't make any sense. Let me just I'm just correcting it. I'm just
Right.
making yeah. That was oof.
As somebody who's not particularly religious myself, I do always I appreciate when they can give a character who is religious the wisdom to speak, the ability to speak their wisdom to somebody who doesn't necessarily share their belief system, because wisdom is not the purview of one religion, one level of faith or whatever. And book walks that line really beautifully. And it reminds me like of the conversation he has with Inara in the first episode, or at the end of the I guess it could be called episode 2, at the end of the 2-part pilot. There is this sort of like moment where he comes and he breaks down and he says, even like, I'm not sure I'm on the right ship. And she says, maybe you're exactly where you need to be. But like, and putting the sex worker and the preacher together in such a meaningful interaction is just, it just shows the level of care that Whedon and also his writers, because it is a whole team of people writing these shows, and they were all really good at what they did.
Yeah.
It just shows the level of care and the desire to give everyone their due. Joss Whedon is vocally an atheist, and he wrote a deeply religious character onto the show, and he wasn't the butt of the joke. He was there to be a wise and caring person, showing, as somebody who's not particularly religious himself, the best of what people of faith can offer. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. Very well said.
Okay, but Inara, I'm sorry. We were talking about Inara and the book and Whedon's portrayal of, yeah.
Yeah, it's I think it probably goes without saying that I pretty much fell in love with Morena Baccarin after this. She's incredible in the role, and
she's an excellent foil, for Malcolm. She just lets him bluster and do whatever and says, okay, and this is how we're going to do it. So, yeah.
I mean, I really enjoyed the character myself. Nope, not going to comment on that. Never mind. She was very good in the role. Don't get me wrong. All right, you know what? I will say it. She's meant to be like the sexy one, and to me, she was too young to be. Because I think the actress is 19 when she played that part. Maybe I'm wrong. Somebody will Google it and tell me if I'm wrong. How old was Morena Baccarin when she, 18 or 19 years ago? But, it is what it is. She's a fine actress. I've seen her in other things, and she's good, except, when there's bad CGI on her face so she can eat a rat. I don't know if you've seen that show.
What?
There was a show called V where she played an alien queen.
Yeah, I didn't watch that. I think my parents did.
I actually did watch it, so I'm like, it's been forever ago. But yeah.
Well, there were 2 versions, and in the remake, she was, she was born in 1979. Okay, so she was probably like 20 years old. 21?
She was 21.
No, 22, 23 even. Maybe she just got such a young look.
She was a brand new graduate from companion school, dude. She was out making her way.
Or like, did she even? Well, yeah, she was a companion in good standing. So
yes, she graduated the program.
But like, she already had like a reputation and everything. So I don't know. It's me being quibbling and me not, and being a dad and not wanting to over-sexualize women who were too young.
I was like 18 at the time, so
it's perfect.
Probably didn't.
Yeah, I was like, you're fine.
I was approaching 30 at that point, so
Yeah, that's okay. She probably would have taken you as a client. So.
Damn it, Nessie.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, and with that, we're going to go to the mid-roll. We've been streaming for about an hour, and I need to make sure I get my shout-outs in. Let's not forget to say hi to Ridiculous Ed Tollett, #1 patron in the world. I saw him in the chat earlier. Hope you're doing good, man. Hope you're doing good. Yes, I did just do that. We've also got a really exciting schedule coming up. So we said earlier, John and I will be discussing next week, The Princess Bride, everything you want to talk about it. Somebody brought up like book to show. No, I'm not reading the book. Sorry.
I actually have read the book, but it's quite a long time ago. But yeah, I think we're just going to focus on the movie.
Right. We're reviewing a nerd culture classic, which the book is not. The movie is. So yeah, grab your buttercups and your as you wishes and come join us next week. Same bad time, same bad channel, where we will talk about. I love this movie, so yeah, we're gonna have a blast. The week after that, we've got something a little different, something we've not done, and it's a little bit outside my comfort zone. But this was not my request. Nessie, was this your idea?
Let's see.
I can't remember. It's our deep dive or one.
No, this was John, and we were talking about this in the Slack actually.
Yeah,
in the Slack chat on the Watchmen. On the
yeah.
Watchmen
I know that I didn't come up with this idea, but I think it's a fantastic idea. We're going to be doing a deep dive into one episode of The Watchmen, and not episode 1. It's the episode with all the flashbacks. And we're very happy that we're going to be having Alicia Kingston as a special guest, because let's face it, we are not going to have the best perspective on the difficulties that Black people face in this country. We're just not the best people to have for that. So I asked a really fantastic lady to come on and share her point of view with us, and so we're looking forward to that.
Yep.
I think the week after that we're wrapping up Picard, and then there's something else on the week after that, and I don't know what. I could probably look and find out.
We're going to get back maybe into some Expanse coverage.
Oh yes, single character coverage on the Expanse. We haven't picked a character yet. We're probably going to put it to a vote. So on Twitter. So again, go follow us on Twitter. Go follow us on Twitter. Link is in the description. Yeah.
But
no,
just like our
Mom, not the one where a god walks, not a god walks into a bar. It's the one where Angela is
this extraordinary being is
this extraordinary being where Angela is like in her drug-induced fever dream.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see this here already?
Oh yeah.
See, these ladies know what they want, though.
I mean, Stephen, that's kind of, it's going to be all about AIDS.
I mean, we're going to put it to the vote, so make sure you vote. And for those of you who are not on Twitter, tell me what your vote is, and I'll take it under advice, take that into consideration when we look at the final numbers.
Leave it in the comments.
Well, I see 2 for Amos already. Although, yeah.
Yeah, just leave some preferences in the video comments, and we'll see them.
Yep, I will. Yeah.
Miller.
I mean, Miller's a fine choice too, and there's a lot of ladies like Miller too.
And we're going to be getting to all of these people, guys. This is just a kickstart. So which one are we going to start with first? There's no bad choice. Yeah,
we're going to try to do like maybe 1 a month until the new season comes out. So that's going to give us a chance to do 6, 7, 8, depending on when season 5 drops. Yeah. So yeah, Just whoever you want to look at first. And we're going to be trying to sneak some of our Expanse loving friends in on this too. Be they Courtney, Maza, Bernie, Mary, all of who've done Expanse stuff with us in the past. Maybe somebody new who I've talked to a little bit about it. We'll see if she's not so busy. But yeah, looking forward to that. All right. Well, that's looking pretty far ahead at this point. What last thing I want to say, come to Ice and Fire Con, or better yet, come to Con of Thrones. All three of us are going to be at Con of Thrones. A few of the ladies in the chat were talking earlier about making Here Be Dragon Con, camping out in my backyard. And I got to tell you, as great as you guys are, it terrifies me, the idea of a bunch of people descending upon my house. But if you want to, we can rent the Sheraton, or the Hotel Inn lobby. Or
Stephen, what happened to our cohort? Where'd she go?
We lost the Nessie. She'll be back in a minute, I'm sure.
No, I was going to say, you and I are already having kind of a mini Here Be Dragons Con before Con of Thrones.
Yep.
Stephen is coming down my way, and we're driving up together. So.
Yep. Oh, we lost Nessie. She'll be back in a minute. Oh man. I'm sorry. I'm reading Lissa's comment here. I just made you think of Shepard and Inara's relationship and hear the song Three Wooden Crosses in my head. Yeah, I'm not a big country music fan, but that song's got something to it. Uh-oh, I've got an out. Do you see this? I've got an out. Here's the thing. I've already made a deal with John. So John, I'm a music guy. I listen to music of all kinds. John's not that into music. So we made a deal that, for every episode of The Dark Crystal that I watch, he has to listen or watch one music video of my choice. And man,
I already told you I don't even consider that an obstacle. I'm on board with that. So it seems to me you're the one who just keeps putting it off.
Well, time is not a thing that I have an abundance of, especially when we watch a lot of stuff for the channel,
This is for the channel.
Stuff that's already been scheduled for the channel,
Yeah, it seems to me like you're having to come up with character deep dives for the Expanse, but we can't make time for the Dark Crystal.
Nope.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay. You're killing me, Smalls. Anyway, we'll get Nessie back when she comes back. Until then, John, we're just going to carry on.
All right.
Hopefully it won't be too long. Oh, speak of the devil and who should appear.
Hey.
And you look like you teleported to another room.
Yeah, I lost my internet service all of a sudden. So I'm on my phone right now, but that's okay. I'll readjust the lighting a little bit.
Okay, so we're done with the mid-roll and we're ready to get back to the conversation at hand. Let's talk about characters maybe we haven't mentioned much yet. Unless you guys have something to say about Inara. More?
I adore her sort of back and forth with Mal, because she really holds her own against him and doesn't let him slide on anything. And I really like that.
Yeah, she's the only one that can really tell him no in some ways.
Yeah.
Everybody else is a crew member. She's a tenant and he's a landlord in some ways. Oh, Nessie. You're choppy.
Yeah. Let me try to jump out and jump back on again.
Okay. But you're right though. She's her back and forth with Mal is so it humanizes him in a way that the other characters almost just can't.
Yeah.
and he gets so flustered by her because clearly he has feelings for her too.
But it's funny, as far as you mentioned humanizing him, what's interesting is that happens also in the film through River. Because, especially in the film, I think it's something that Joss says on the commentary track where it's Mal's story, the film, but it's seen through River's eyes. So in the film, she's the conduit through which Mal is humanized, and it comes down to that. The final exchange of the film is between him and River,
and that
in a great tender moment,
and a great speech about loving the ship, or yeah,
that really got me right in the feels.
Yeah, good stuff.
Of course, but again, that's also a brilliant example of what I was saying earlier about with Jane, where the story has a great sense of humor about itself because you have this very emotional speech and moment with the uplifting music as the ship takes off and it clears through. But then at the very last second, you have the part of the ship that he goes, "What was that?" That's the end.
Yeah, that was perfect right there.
It really was.
Yeah.
The show in general always had a great sense of humor. So let's make sure we mention the rest of the main cast at least, because they deserve it. Of the main cast of characters. Zoe is such a great personification of Mal's sense of duty. Been with him through thick and thin. His best friend in the world is Zoe. He knows he can trust her with things he cannot trust anybody else with. Not that he maybe cares about her more, because that's not the case. He cares about Kaylee deeply. He cares about Wash deeply. He cares about Zoe. But he's willing to put Zoe in extremely dangerous situations because he knows he can trust her there. And her sense of duty will just carry her forward to do whatever he asks because she trusts him.
Yeah, and I can't say enough great things about Gina Torres.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because this was not the first time I saw her in one of Joss Whedon's projects, because the first thing I saw her in was Angel. So when I did get around to watching this, it took a while for me to get that out of my head.
Yeah, she's much better on this show.
Which is funny because now I can't picture her as anybody but Zoe.
Right. She was also in the Matrix movies, Reloaded.
Yeah, that wasn't a very big part, though, was it?
It wasn't, but she was in those movies.
Yeah.
She fired a rocket launcher at invading nanomachines. But, yeah. I do find her to be a really fantastic character, and so no nonsense, will do whatever Mal asks, but is not afraid to give him crap. It's a very
but also just her overall strength. I think one of the moments that shows us the most is I've made a joke in the chat that we weren't going to mention this. But in Serenity, after Wash dies, and near the end of the film, in the moment you can see how devastated she is. But then when it comes time to, make sure that she's defending everybody and setting things up, she's got that one-track mind of making sure that from a battle perspective, they've got all the
right. She's
she's thinking about the tactics, and it's not for a few more minutes where you can see the cracks again.
Mm-hmm.
So
she knows what she's got to do. She handled it, which is again that sense of duty, which she is which is kind of her defining trait. Yes, she's a fully realized character, loves her husband, has kind of a dry sense of humor. Love the character, but yeah, you're right. In that moment when she has to step up because because she has to in the moment, and that's the place where she does it the best, in the thick of things, when danger is afoot. I just got a message from Nessie, y'all. She says she's going to have to bow out because she can't keep her connection stable. So it sucks. We love you, Nessie. If you can figure out a way to get back on, join us again. But until then, love you.
That sucks.
It does suck. I was really hoping to pick her brain a little bit more. All right, so who have we not talked about? We haven't talked about Simon and River much. And that might be it.
Yeah.
The Tam siblings.
Yeah, I think it's easy to underestimate the work of
Simon?
Simon. Sorry, the actor's name is.
Oh,
I'm blanking out on his name for a second. I know it. I just.
If you say it, I will say yes, that's him.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be able to conjure it to my mind. Somebody in the chat will look up who Simon Tam is, and they will post it, and I will say that person's name and put their.
Yeah, but so anyway, it's easy, I think, to undervalue his contributions because the character is not the most interesting of the characters. But I think he does an excellent job in the role, and you really see how much he cares for River.
Thank you, Violet Messiah, Sean Meyer. I never knew how to say his name, especially.
But
oh, Nessie was there with it too. Anyway, yeah. But I tend to agree with you. As I said, he's not the most interesting character, but he's a great romantic foil for Kaylee. He's such a loving brother to his sister. He's smart. He's dedicated to his principles to the point of I know you turned on us and you're on my operating table, but I want you to know you're absolutely safe. I would never do such a thing, which is intimidating as hell, by the way, in the moment. But that is maybe my favorite moment for that character throughout the entire series.
There's another moment that's between him and River that I absolutely love, and it's in the film when it's after she's kind of lost it, and he's in there talking with her and kind of trying to make sure that she's okay. And she keeps going on about Miranda, and we don't know what Miranda is at that point. And then he says, "Am I talking to Miranda now?" And she gives him a look like,
right.
This is great brother-sister moment. I absolutely love.
Yeah, and again, he's such a straight man character, and Anna's calling him boring. I don't want to call him boring, but he is not the most interesting. I will absolutely agree with that.
Well, it's interesting because I think he kind of fills that role so that Mal doesn't have to.
Right.
Because we're just talking about how the protagonist usually is the the least interesting character, but in a way, Simon fills that role because he's the one protecting River, which is kind of the impetus for the entire story. So Mal, as the captain, doesn't have to bear the burden of filling that role. He's got other stuff going on. So I think somebody always has to be the boring straight man, basically.
Well, I'm not even calling him boring, but least interesting. Yeah. But that's being the least interesting character in a Whedon show is being the worst donut out of the dozen. They're all good donuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's not a bad cookie. Even if you get the small cookie, it's still good. So well, I guess just kind of leaves us with River, who is maybe the most interesting character on the show.
Yeah, it's funny to think of this as Summer Glau's beginning, because she went on to do Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles,
Yeah.
and she's been in a number of other stuff,
including Dollhouse. We talked about
Yes.
Dollhouse briefly. She's in Dollhouse not till season 2, but she's in it.
Yeah. Yeah, again, almost an actor at this point it's almost easy, as much acclaim as she gets for it, it's also easy to undervalue the work that she does because she's so good. but she's so great at playing this person who's at once broken but also very strong.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry. I thought you had more to your thoughts.
no, I'm done for the moment. What
Okay.
do you want to say?
Yeah, I've, first of all, let's be honest. Summer Glau is beautiful. She's also a former she was trying to become a professional ballet dancer before she broke.
Actually, she does play a role in Angel, I believe,
as a ballet dancer.
Third season as a ballet dancer. Yeah.
Yep, and it's a very good, interesting episode.
Mm-hmm.
But she broke her feet, broke her toes, and couldn't continue as a dedicated ballet dancer. So she moved over to acting, and like she brings that grace that only a dancer can have, even when she's being like freaking out and falling over stuff. But there are a couple of moments in the show that I find to be like just maybe. Oh, there's Nessie. Are we back?
Hey guys, I'm gonna try to go without with camera with audio only and see if that'll work.
Well, we're gonna give it a try. We'd much rather have you here.
I'd much rather be here.
So we're just we talked a little bit about Simon, and I'm going to give you a chance to talk about Simon if you want. But we're on to River at the moment, and I was just wanting to describe. There is a scene, and John, you probably are maybe geeked out about this as much as I did when I saw it. I'm a fan of great cinematography, but there was a shot where there was a stick lying on the floor or on the deck of Serenity, and she walks up to it in her bare feet, and then you see her face come in from this angle, almost, you see her hair come in and her face come in, and just her feet, which only a ballet dancer can really do that,
Right.
Like the framing of that shot is a thing of beauty, and it gives me chills every time I see it. It might be the single greatest shot in the entire television show, at least. But the way she sells her sort of like curious nature, the way she's so engaged with what's going on around her. God, I love that character. She's so weird and quirky, and
yeah, that was quintessential River right there.
Mm-hmm.
It compresses everything about her, from her, like you say, her quirkiness to her childlike wonder that she has with the universe. Her mind is just operating on another level.
Mm-hmm.
So just the way she views the universe is really cool, and her perspective. So yeah, that just encapsulates it in that one weird, quirky shot, like you were saying. That's her.
Or like when she and Simon, they get kidnapped in an episode, but before that, there's this sort of like town fair festival thing going on, and the people are dancing, and then you see her, watch them dance for a moment, and it's well established that River's good at everything she does, and just breaks into the dance, and the pure joy on her face of her watching her just spin in circles. I mean, it touches on that childlike wonder yet again. But there is definitely two sides to River.
Well, yeah,
Because there's that side that is not smiling and dancing.
No, that's the one that's the trained killer that can kill you with a toe because she is such a great dancer, you know. That was one of the things that they mentioned in the movie, how she was a thing of beauty to watch when she was going through her training, because she was just the dancer in her made it beautiful and terrible to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And the one scene where we get in the bar where she's just dancing and floating and twirling and kicking butt at the same time. It was just poetry. It was amazing.
Anything you want to add, John?
No, not really, because...
So, Inara or River, from an 18-year-old thirst's point of view?
Jesus.
Yeah, oh man, I cornered him. Look at him, he's going to turn red a little bit.
Yeah,
well, she was older in the movie. They did age her up.
Inara, yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Can we please move on to something else?
Yeah. No, I'm letting this pregnant pause just hang in the air for a minute. Okay, so Nessie, I want to give you a chance to talk about Simon if you've got anything to say.
Well, Simon is so he's the guy who always has to play the cleric in the party. You know, he's there to patch everybody up, make sure that they're, following good nutrition and hygiene, getting proper rest. So somebody's got to do it. And, by God,
somebody's got to play the cleric. And
somebody's got to play the cleric.
And fascinatingly enough, it's not the cleric.
It's not the cleric. No, Sean Meyer. He really does embody that do no harm aspect, like I think your mom was saying in the chat. Yeah. Being a medical person myself, it doesn't matter who it is that you've got in front of you that's your patient. They're your patient, and their well-being, it supersedes who they are and what they've done. You're just there to be their caregiver and provide for them what they need. And then, afterwards is afterwards, but, you have to be a caregiver first. So it's hard to differentiate that mindset. But it's something that's required for your job. Otherwise, you're in the wrong line of work.
Right.
Yep.
I nothing but respect for medical professionals. I was when I joined the Army, I was this close to choosing medic as my MOS, but I didn't want to. I changed my mind because I'm like, patching up people's gunshot wounds is not something that I'm sure I'm ready to handle the stress of. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I completely understand.
Yeah, so hats off to those of you that can do it. I'm not one that can. Like, if there is an emergency type situation, I'm going to do what I know how to do. And real talk, the Army trained me some, and I know how to do some decent first aid. But like, for it to be my job to save someone's life, nah, man, I'm good. So, but hats off to you and Simon both.
Yeah.
I love Lissa. In her headcanon, Zoe was pregnant at the end of Serenity with Wash Jr. And I think that is a fine place to put your headcanon. You know what? I'm going to join you there.
Yeah, there's nothing that really refutes that, so I'm on board with that.
Well, she wanted to have kids.
Right. I would love to see a reboot of this show where they still have like most of the main characters. You can't have Book, you can't have Wash, unfortunately, but you could have, Hoban Jr. Because his name is Hoban Washburn, by the way. I don't know that they ever even say that in the show.
No, I had to look it up.
Yeah.
My feelings on that are complicated because at this point, I'm not even sure that I want some kind of continuation, because I'd be worried that the moment has passed and it just won't be the same. So I don't know
Well,
how I feel about that.
you can always have one more heist job with Saffron coming back for another round.
Okay, so we've talked about all the characters. I'm going to acknowledge that the Serenity itself is awesome.
Yeah, maybe you should ask me that question you asked a couple minutes ago again, now that we're going to talk about Saffron.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was the lady that pulled my trigger on this show. Wow. Christina Hendricks.
Yeah, which I remember getting so excited when I saw that she was on Mad Men as I was watching it, because she was so phenomenal in that. But this is definitely the first time I saw her, and she gets 2 appearances in the short episode run.
Very few non-main characters get more than 1 appearance. I can think of 3 offhand.
Right, but they're bad guys.
Nishka and Badger being the other 2.
Right. Yeah, those are just business connections. But Saffron is really fleshed out there. No hint. Hint.
Yeah, Christina Hendricks was the Be Still My Heart. To this very day, everybody knows my well-documented love for redheads, blah, blah, blah. Moving on. But she's actually not that small on Firefly. She's young, and a lot of the actors on Firefly are actually fairly tall. Nathan Fillion is tall. Adam Baldwin is tall. Gina Torres is tall. So she's just always standing next to somebody who's also tall. So I love the way they made that character like somebody you knew you couldn't trust, but you don't want to be done with her. You want her to come back and stir up trouble again, which is a sign of a great sort of like recurring villain.
I think Malcolm felt the same way. Yeah, he needs a little bit of trouble in his life.
Yeah. So we got about 30 minutes left. Do you guys have anything else you want to make sure we talk about? Because I've got a couple of like larger themes we could talk about.
Just we're going to talk about side characters. Just one more that I want to slip in, who's not in the series but in the film, is Chiwetel Ejiofor, who plays the operative. And at the time, I was really impressed by the work he did in the film, and then of course he's gone on to, even greater things since then. The least not which is 12 Years a Slave, which everybody knows him from. But he's a phenomenal actor, and he was really great in this. A villain that I don't know if you rooted for him, but he was really fun to watch. He was very extremely interesting and a very intelligent adversary for Mal.
Yeah, and like with a worldview that let you know he was extremely dangerous. Like, there's no place for me in the world I'm building. I'm a marketer. I'll do anything. For like, because he's that sort of like, he's chaotic good turned because a chaotic good person is, I'm going to do whatever's right, even if I have to kill everybody in the room. So that's the sort of like point of view he was having. He was just incredibly misguided. And even if I have to kill everybody in the room, murder is not good. So let's have that said as well. Of course, he went too far, but like you understand his motivations. You also understand the lengths to which he is willing to go, and it makes him an incredibly compelling character. And again, Chiwetel Ejiofor plays him like with such a matter of factness about that. I am who I am. This is what I believe. I'm going to do that. And there's no need to even like discuss it further.
And I mean, just the stuff it does, just with the whole thing with forcing the guy to fall on a sword in the beginning. It's like, dude, I mean, that's just a fantastically written character and a great performance.
Yeah. What'd you think of him, Nessie?
Well, like you said, he's very fascinating. You can tell he's seen some things, he's done some things, he's killed a lot of people, and probably a lot of people that he respected. Just to see this worldview that he's bought into, hook, line, and sinker, come to pass. He's a true believer in a cause. And
what makes him so dangerous.
That's exactly. There's nothing more dangerous than a truly righteous man.
But he's allowed to go on an arc throughout the film as well.
Oh, yeah.
He arrives at a very different place by the end of the film.
He's a very thinking man's character. He's the kind of guy that you're like, what brought him here? What brought him to this place? What made him, sign on with, at the Alliance? And he sees it as like this just and pure cause to, the Alliance. But
I think one of my
shady stuff.
Yeah, and he's not overly confident in his dealings with his enemies either. I love the moment where it's the first confrontation with Mal, and he's acting like sort of the confident villain, where he says, I'm not threatening you, I'm unarmed, and then Mal shoots him, and then he gets right back to me and says, I am of course not a moron, I'm wearing full body armor.
Right.
Which is definitely a part that I love. But yeah, it's one of the high points of the film, with many highlights. So
it also says a lot about Mal in that scene, that
I'm
unarmed, good, and just pulls it out.
That's Josh saying that my Han Solo shoots first.
Right. Well, and if you remember back to the pilot, he tells Simon, if I ever shoot you, you'll be awake, you'll be facing me, and you'll be armed.
Yeah.
Well, this guy admitted to being unarmed, and he got immediately shot. Of course, there's a difference between the operative and Simon as well.
His body was a weapon. I mean,
I think Mal just knew this guy was dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe he didn't know everything he was capable of, but he knew that he was an assassin, and the best of the best, the best trained. So he wasn't some guy off the street.
Yeah.
He wasn't some doctor with a kid sister, in tow.
Right.
But just speaking of that scene, there's so much great dialogue in that scene. I love Mal's aside to Inara, where he says, yes, I read a poem, try not to faint.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I like your comment there. I don't know how to change names. I'd rather get a Picard-like follow-up than a reboot. I agree. I don't think you could reboot the show. It would be weird to see someone else try to play Mal or Wash if they're going to try to do a full reboot. Like, give me Mal 15 years later. Give me someone for him to, maybe a couple of the old characters for him to riff off of. but then like give me new characters. There's no reason that that it should be the same people 15 years on. Oh my gosh, hold on a second, y'all. Lauren, is that Lauren B from work? If so, hey, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, I think I'd at least want to see Zoe with him.
Mm-hmm. Zoe would be almost the one I feel like would most need to be there.
Yeah, did you need to see the follow up, on her story and where
Well,
she.
also just because of their relationship.
Oh,
Yeah, it's. I'd need the two of them to be in it, but yeah. So before I interrupted you, Stephen, uh, what did you want to talk about theme wise?
I love. Okay, there's two things that I wanted to discuss. One is like the only genuine criticism I've ever heard of the show that made me go, "That's a legitimate criticism," and it's somewhat to do with the time period in which it's made, and that is for a television show where the primary culture is a blending of English speaking and Chinese speaking people. There are not enough Chinese characters in the show. There's a few in some background of some scenes, but like there's not even any prominent guest stars, Asian characters. And if we were to get as somebody said, a Picard style continuation of the story, I think that was something that they could go a long way towards rectifying by focusing on half of the society that was, the language was there, the writing was there, but the characters were not there. And I think that's a legitimate thing to point out as being lacking in the show.
right.
Other than that, it's perfect and flawless, and you'll never convince me otherwise. One of the things I always really appreciated was the design aesthetic of a lot of what goes on. Their sets are, again, we talked about that Western feel. You can even feel it in the camera work, the way they do those spaghetti Western hard zooms, and the focus doesn't pull at the same way the zoom at the same time as the zoom. So you get this moment of unfocused close up. But the settlements look like they're Wild West settlements with that element of, maybe there's a solar panel or something to that nature, to provide power for their the front window of the bar is not made of glass. You get thrown through it, it's a hologram. You just go right through it. But like even down to the battle cruisers that the Alliance has, there are these giant circles with these cities on top that kind of move in this way. It's incredibly inefficient and bulky, and it looks like out of sorts and like it's ungainly, and that is a great metaphor for the Alliance itself. It's this ungainly bureaucracy that sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, and it's incredibly inefficient, and it's reflected in the way, down to the way they build their ships. So I think it was really kind of, sometimes the set design doesn't get enough credit in the show, but I think they did a really, really good job. Looks like we lost Nessie again, unfortunately. Anyway, and there's also this theme of like, Joss Whedon has said the show is about 9 people looking into space and seeing 9 different things. And I really love the idea of that we can all see something and get something different from it. We can all have a different experience whenever we're looking at a piece of art or whatever. Mal sees it as like the only place he can be free. I mean, it's right there in the theme song. For Jane, it's a way to make money. For Kaylee, it was a way off her home, her dead-end home planet. For Simon, it's a place to keep his sister safe. You know, for Wash, it's a place where he can do the thing he loves the most. And they're all getting something different out of it, but they all need to be there. And the family they make together is what makes the show so good.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. We've got about 15 minutes. Bring up anything you want in the chat. John, bring up anything you want. Favorite episode, favorite quote,
favorite episode,
favorite scene that just needs to be talked about that we haven't talked about yet. The sword fight.
I know I was thinking a little while ago about what my favorite episode was, and now I'm drawing a blank.
I have two favorites, and actually, all right. So, Out of Gas, which is like the origin story one. I love that episode. It doesn't really do much for the larger plot of the season. It's more self-contained than most. Oh, and they're Reavers in English. They're called Reavers. I'll type it. I'm sure that's a translation from Spanish. Did you watch it in Spanish, Anna? But yes, Reavers. A hell of a antagonist to have, Reavers. I'm not sure I love them in their first introduction, but the idea of what they are and where they come from and what they represent to the larger narrative, they're really sort of like terrifying. Not just from the standpoint of who they are and what they do, but the things that were done to them to make them what they are.
Yeah, and I think that they're more effective in the television series than they are in the film. Don't get me wrong, I love everything about the movie, but I think that the fear that came along with them was more effective in the series than in the film, which might be because we see them right off the bat in the movie. And whereas in the show, they're kind of kept in the shadows, and you just have characters talking about all the horrible things they do and what they're like, and what the imagination cooks up is always going to be scarier than what you see with your own two eyes.
Right. Well, you say that, but like we've already seen them at this point. When we see them in the movie, we've already seen them. No, we've only seen the one guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's different. It's like...
You're right, it is. But,
it's like seeing one guy that they've just kind of transformed into one of them is different than seeing them in full force. So... I don't know. I mean, I don't want to criticize it too hard because,
right?
I love the movie through and through. I'm just saying it's probably one of the elements that comes off stronger in the series for me.
Nessie, you're giving me emotional whiplash here.
I'm sorry, guys.
Anything you want to say about the Reavers?
Oh, the Reavers. Oh, those guys, crazy. At first I was like, what are these guys? You know, you get the explanation that, oh, this is just what happens to people when they get to the edge of space, and it just makes them crazy. They can't take the cosmic nihilism or whatever, that they're just,
right.
There's just breaks their brains. And I'm like, before we got to the movie, I was thinking that maybe, this was just something that, the Alliance didn't want people, they would put that, like our title says, here be dragons. This is out here on the edge. Don't go any further.
Right.
This is like the extent that they can control and manage at this time. And so they put the boogeyman, out there along toward the edge to, dissuade people from going further out and getting further and further from their control.
Right.
So I thought maybe that was what the purpose of the Reavers were, not that they were, some horrible science experiment, accident, gone wrong. But to get that answer there in the movie was
Yeah.
that was great to find out, what exactly the deal is with these people.
I don't know that I loved the reveal of that, but the larger theme at play about controlling your citizenry and wanting to create them docile, and that's genuine, because it's a very sort of it's a veiled allusion to censorship. They want to control the way you think and feel.
Right. Yeah. And they want to say, to control whatever expansion that the population has, to keep them, not extend any further than their reaches. Right there on the edge, they are, it is the Wild West, so to speak, as far as their ability to control people's day-to-day lives. So, there is a certain amount of freedom being out there riding the ragged edge of civilization, so to speak, that, they wouldn't have in, any of the more civilized worlds on the, the inner part of the system. So.
Right. So, John, anything else to say about Reavers?
No, but I actually really, I think that was one of the things about them that I really liked about the film, was the ultimate reveal of where they came from, because it made complete sense. It was thematically, it was right in there with the whole concept of the Alliance trying to control everybody, and and the Independents fighting against that. And so, no, I thought that was quite effective.
I agree. Again, I don't know that I like their origin story. Oh, they're a failed science experiment, but the nature of the experiment, the driving force behind it, I thought was fantastic.
Right. Well,
Nessie, this is a question for you, Nessie.
Yeah.
Right here.
Can you grill bacon? Is that unreasonable? Yes, you can, actually. Some of the best bacon that I make, I have a panini maker that I have, and I put my perfect bacon slices all along the panini maker, pull the top down, crisps and cooks it on both sides, grease drains out. Perfect. Every time.
Y'all may not know this. Well, you probably do if you've been here for a while. Nessie's got a meat room, for crying out loud. She is the bacon queen, and she's married to the sausage king, and
that's the other thing we do in our spare time.
I'm trying to remember what I was going to bring up. Oh, favorite episodes. I said Out of Gas, and I've got to say Objects in Space. And I love Objects in Space because I love Jubal Early.
Well, yeah,
I love that. He is a theory. He is a failed version of what they made River into. And he's the one that got away.
I love his exchange with Simon, when Simon says, "You're a lion," and he says, "A lion? I don't know if I'd call myself a lion."
Yeah, I see him more in the aspect of, he's a bounty hunter. He's not as talented, skilled, trained, or what have you as River was, and the operative in the movie. Yeah, but
he couldn't be fooled by anyone except River.
Well, true.
And he was extremely dangerous.
Canny individual. He was good at his job. I will say that, and he was able to use a lot of psychology, I guess, and that was more frightening in a way. His ability to get in somebody's head, and that's what you're saying, right, Steve? And get in somebody's head and pull out their darkest thoughts, their darkest fears, and use them against them.
I think the most harrowing single line of that whole series is when he looks at Kaylee and asks her, "Have you ever been?" I don't even want to say the word, but that's a gut.
He was marked for death.
Makes my blood run cold just thinking about it.
Yeah,
because it's because of his the matter of fact and cold, and the thing is he's not into that, I think, but he is definitely willing to use that as a means of motivating someone.
Yeah. No, he had no issue using it as a weapon.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah. So I objects in space. Also, River is she's feels very, very alienated. That's the same episode where we get the shot of her bending over to pick up the stick, which turns into a gun. And I love that episode. So Nessie, I want to make sure you get yours in. John, I want to make sure you get yours in if you've got one you want to talk about.
Yeah, I think it's Ariel.
Okay.
Purely because of all the stuff with Jane's character. I think that final bit with him, being out in the airlock, and he was saying the money was too good, and the speech that Mal gives about you turn on one of my crew, that's a betrayal to me, and then when Jane finally says, don't tell him what I did, make up something else. I mean, it just tugs at the heartstrings.
Yeah. Well, those are two pretty good think pieces. And I'm just going to go with the most fun episode to watch in the whole series. And that's going to be Trash.
Oh, yeah.
Trash, I think, was
the laser.
Yeah, when they're the heist episode is what I was the one
stuff,
that
man. It's good stuff.
I think that was the absolute best, most fun episode. I'll say that in the whole series. I laughed during the whole thing. I was like, Malcolm, are you going to really believe a thing that this woman says is ever the whole way? And I'm like, and you're naked and you're in the middle of the desert and you deserve it.
Yep.
And Inara was literally, she told, when she told Saffron, oh yeah, I was in on it the whole time. She wasn't in on it the whole time. She and Malcolm weren't in on it. They weren't in on it together. No.
I think they were. I think they played Saffron.
I don't think they were. I think.
No, my understanding was that they did.
Yeah, that they played Yo Saf Bridge.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know that was. I thought that was like what she told them, but I kind of had a feeling that they.
I don't know that I've heard definitively one way or the other. I just always read it as Inara was in on it.
I mean, the opening scene where he's sitting there, just naked out in the desert on a rock, like he's not thinking at that time, okay, the crew's going to be here 5 minutes from now. He's just like, she got me again, dang it.
Right.
He looks so forlorn at that opening scene. I'm thinking, that's what I got from the second watch anyway. I didn't pick that up during the first watch. I was like, oh yeah, she was in on it. They were all in on it together. Saffron got played, but on the rewatch, I kind of thought maybe Mal was, not in on it.
I also love that quote. I shaved my beard for you, devil woman.
Oh yeah, oh my God. I guess that kind of hit a little close to home there, Steven.
Oh yeah.
Devil woman.
No, I'm not shaving my beard for anybody but me.
Mm-hmm. You'd shave it for Saffron, be real.
I mean, I wouldn't shave it for her, but I'd shave it for me. Here's the thing. Never mind. We'll continue this conversation when it's a little more private. Guys, it's about 7:00 here in Dallas anyway, so we're moving towards the end. Any final thoughts? I'll go first. Guys, go watch this show again because it's definitely worth watching. Go watch the movie again. If you see the Browncoats doing a thing, support them because there is an official fan group called the Browncoats and they do a lot of great charitable work. You can see them at various conventions around. If you're at a Comic-Con, there's probably a Browncoats group there, and they're probably doing something for a charitable cause. So yeah, I love the show. Would love to see a continuation of it, done in the Logan or Picard style. Yeah. That is it.
That's it.
I'll just wrap up by saying that I love this show and the film. It's been one of the things that ever since I first saw it way back, I've remained just as in love with it. And I've probably watched it a million times. That's why I was telling you guys before the stream, I didn't get to do a full rewatch for this, but I didn't really have to because I've seen the show so many times that I know it pretty well. And it's just one of the best things ever made as far as I'm concerned. And it's kind of like they often say about Camelot, whereas it's something that existed for a short period of time, but it shone very brightly. And so, yeah, those are my feelings on the show. And if I'm assuming everybody in the stream hopefully has seen it, but if you haven't, definitely go ahead and watch it.
Yeah, take the time. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I don't. It's not as shiny as a lot of the newer sci-fi shows out. You know, the filming, the cinematography is a little rough around the edges at times, and but that's to be expected. It holds up. It still holds water. The characters are still the great characters that they were, and the story is still the same. And it's well worth watching. I'm glad I did.
I'm glad you did too. Made for a really interesting conversation as well. Like, nobody can see it all. I'm kind of glad you hadn't seen it, because it's not every day you get to take somebody who's completely new to a thing and have them go through it, which, like, who hasn't seen Star Wars? Who do you get to show The Empire Strikes Back to, and that "No, I am your father" moment?
My husband.
Yeah. But you get what I'm saying. There's not a whole lot of those people out there.
Yeah.
So I was delighted that you hadn't watched it, and now I hope you're delighted that you have.
I certainly am.
All right. Well, guys, I'm done. Those are my final thoughts.
Let me just say one more thing, because I meant to mention it earlier, because we didn't talk about the music of the series, which is absolutely wonderful. Joss, actually, I believe Joss wrote the opening music himself, but the composer for the rest of the music, his name is Greg Edmondson, and he did a lot of really great work just with establishing the Western feel of the show. And especially there's a great piece of music at the end of the episode, The Message, which is for the funeral of a character. And actually that piece of music was written after the cancellation news came through.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the composer's farewell to the series.
And the whole crew knew it at the time. So next time you watch that episode, Nessie, where they're at the funeral at the end,
mm-hmm.
they're literally mourning the death of their show at that point.
That sucks.
Yeah. And I actually got to meet the composer when I went to LA back in 2011. I was there for other reasons, but I got to meet up with a former coworker of mine who was out there, and he was filming some interviews for a documentary on film and television music, and he invited me along for the interview with that gentleman. So I got to have my picture taken with him. So that was quite a trip. And but yeah, big fan of the music for the show. And And that's it for me. I guess that's probably my last thing.
All right. Well, that being said, would like to thank you all for coming. You know, we do this every week because you guys show up. You know, we could just get on a closed chat and talk to each other about whatever we wanted, but it's really great to have all of you here with us. And, you know, it's usually the same faces I see week in, week out. You know, occasionally somebody new shows up, and we're always glad to welcome new people into the chat. But yeah, it's you, the regulars, that really make me love doing this. So thank you once again. We'll be back next week. John and I are going to be talking about The Princess Bride. The week after that, we're going to have special guest Alicia Kingston on to do a deep dive into a very interesting episode of The Watchmen. Maybe the most talked about episode of Watchmen.
Yes.
I can't remember what's after that. Oh yeah, Picard. We're gonna have Neil back for the Picard finale. So everybody that enjoyed him last time, he'll be back. Yeah, and so what after that? We're not sure exactly yet, but we've got stuff coming.
I'm sure.
We'll be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I know what's likely, but we don't know for sure. So yeah, everyone, thanks for coming. It's great to see you all as usual. And you know what it is. Until next time, peace and be excellent to each other.
Bye now.